I've been messing around with H15-4 for the last few days and mostly getting my ass beat. Since for the most part I focus on EN, usually all the hard maps get beaten by other 4-star players on CN before I get around to playing them. When the event comes to EN, I then look at the current record and try to see what I can do to improve on it. That's what I try to do on H15-4. The current record sits at a full squad of 12 operators, and it took nearly a month for it to be completed. For reference, the previous hardest story map was H204 at 9 operators. I have one idea worth exploring that might push the record down to 11, but it will take a while and probably won't work anyway. So in other words, I have nothing to show for my efforts. All that's left to do is to praise the RatSims 12 operator run to make myself feel better about not being able to beat it. Before I show you the run, let me explain why it's such a pain in the ass for 4 stars. This ugly ass monitor is PRTS. You have to kill her in 7 minutes from the start of the map or you lose. She has about 100,000 health, 4,000 defense and 75 res. But we can't just go DPS, so no. First we have to kill her dog, which also has 4000 defense and 75 res. Once we kill the dog, we get a DPS window to smack the boss, but the window gets shortened for every hit the boss takes. Here is why this is such a problem for me. 4000 defense is beyond the ability of 4-star physical to damage. All my physical is useless against PRTS. Acid drop cheats past the defense and remains effective, but her best skill causes double hits, which closes the DPS window faster. Once the DPS window is over, the dog revives with an attack buff and I have to kill it again. The devices in the map can be used to lower its defense by 50%, but 2000 defense is still way too high. I'd need to bring Meteor and then I'd run into trouble trying to deal with all the other enemies who also have a ton of defense. In short, we are forced to use arts damage. These are all the 4 stars who can do arts damage. If we leave only the ones who do good single target damage, oh, would you look at that? That's half the squad was used for 12 operators. We're forced to use arts, but it's hard to use it on PRTS. Other than Haze, who herself has an ASPD buff on her better skill, the other single target arts damage operators all have high hit counts in Click and Indigo. That makes them very ineffective at using the DPS window. Utage has the highest arts damage per hit among 4 stars, but she can't be of help on the boss because there is no melee tile. So even though we only have 7 minutes and it takes more than a minute before we can even kill the dog, for most of the map Haze is the only DPS that can be used on PRTS. Finally, the enemy waves are completely unmanageable. Wraiths, exploding drones, golems with the same defense as the boss, casters that delete tiles and vending machines that spawn more enemies. The enemies can be dealt with, but there is no chance to beat them while DPSing the boss down in 7 minutes. So, most of our operators are useless, because we need to stack single target arts, we have too many enemies and only 7 minutes to kill the boss that only Haze can damage. Here is how all of this was beaten by 4 stars. Naturally, we start with Myrtle. We only have 7 minutes to kill the boss, but we also can't deal with the second wave of enemies, so we need to create a kill gate. If you don't know how this works, most boss stages have a first wave and a second wave. The first wave spawns normally, the second wave spawns after you kill the boss. If, however, you kill the boss before the first wave is done spawning, the second wave will not spawn instantly. It will wait until you kill all the enemies in the first wave, and since we have very tanky enemies, we can then trap one of those enemies and keep it alive for long enough to kill the boss. So we can, in essence, fight the first wave, the boss, and then the second wave. Now, to do this, we need to kill the boss before the first wave is done spawning. There are some problems with this. We need that blue debuff tile on the bottom to actually manage to do it, since it reduces its res by 50%. But by now the wave is almost done spawning in. Myrtle gets retreated and Utage is deployed with the last DP we have left to push the boss into the blue tile. And Darin, Click, Moose, Utage all try to DPS down the boss as fast as possible, but as you can see there's other enemies, so their DPS gets diluted. We just barely finish it off before those 2 golems spawns. You can see it was a second off. Those 2 golems are the last things in the first wave. If they had spawned when the boss died, it would keep spawning other enemies. But since we killed it a bit early, nothing else will spawn until we kill the golems. Then one of them can be trapped by Gummy, and she'll take about 10 minutes to kill it. By then, the boss will either be dead or we will be one way or the other. Now we have to deal with the golem. Indigo is very helpful here. she can bind the golem so that the dog revives before the golem, and it's the one that Moose blocks, so the golem can't AoE attack us and one-shot everything. If Moose misses her attack debuff on the boss, he will one-shot everything instead though. Finally, everyone DPSs together, and even though the golem stole a bit of her DPS, we managed to finish off on time. Just in time for Haze Q to ult, and she can drop on her DPS rotation. You can see Haze only does a fraction of the boss health bar with every DPS rotation. Because the dog gets an attack buff every time it revives, eventually it will just one-shot all of our operators, even through the Moose debuff, but that's not a problem at all. By that point we will be dead anyway. We can get other problems than Moose missing her debuff. For example, like this, the dog can decide it's now a drone, and then just walk away. Very rude PRTS. It doesn't happen too often, but it was too funny not to show. Usually, Moose properly debuffs it, we die if she misses it, and then we can eat through its health quickly enough. We repeat this cycle several times, while Haze DPSs. Once we're down to the last cycle, Haze would finish it off on her own, but she's not fast enough, so Acid Drop is finally going to get to DPS the boss. We drop everything, Arene, Indigo Click, retreat Perfumer for the deployment SWAT, and kill the dog as quickly as possible to buy ourselves more time. We're about to run out of time. Not that there's a timer anywhere. And both Haze and Acid Drop shoot together and try to kill it as quickly as possible. In the last few seconds, as the 7 minutes are running out. If I'm a couple of seconds late I would die to this, but this time we made it through. No more dog. All that leaves is the rest of the map. We set up in a similar way to before, but now we don't have to DPS check. Gummy finally finishes off the golem, and all that's left is to clean up the basic enemies. I actually managed to die to this part once, in a incredibly stupid way. Because we have those stupid Frost Nova ghosts that delete tiles, if you kill the trucks, or vending machines rather, coming at the bottom, if you kill them too slowly, one of the ghosts can step into the Moose tile and then banish her from existence. It's very irritating. Indigo has nothing better to do, so she'll help Contrail deal with the Wraiths. Same goes for Utage. Meanwhile, Myrtle and Moose blocked some golems from being deployed, and after this part, all that's left are 4 annoying golems to deal with. Now the ghost did step into Moose tile this time, but for some reason it didn't delete it, and it can't block the tile in front because it's already occupied. Wonder if that works with the real Frost Nova. Is there a map that has a healing tile? Would be fun to check. Moose blocks the last ghost, while the golem walks through. If he hits, he one-shots because he does an AoE attack, so that's best avoided. We have some of those BDSM casters, but they don't matter too much here. We have our DPS deployed, they can kill the golems on the bottom, while the top gets blocked. Now, Gummy cannot tank 2 golems at once on her own, that's why we retreated Perfumer. And while the bottom golems are getting shot by Click, who's pretending to do damage without Haze's help, we'll just throw bodies to stall the second golem, while Acid Drop and Click finish on the bottom. And thanks to the stunning on the top, we buy enough time to redeploy Perfumer and Moose on the top lane. And now all that's left is to kill the golems. That's H15-4 done with 4 stars only.